Good morning and welcome to a very special event for us at Caseware Africa. It is my privilege to exclusively introduce our brand new and improved ISRE Review Cloud solution to you today. Please note that the session will be recorded and will be shared with you via email after the webinar has been concluded. For attendees who are joining on their phones, please ensure that your webcam view settings are set to active cameras. During the session, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the questions pane and we will answer them there. My name is Sandini Ramal and I'm the product manager for our assurance portfolio here at Caseware Africa. It is truly a pleasure to be speaking with all of you today. First up, on the agenda, I will take you through an introduction to the solution and give you some compliance background. Then I will hand over to Priyanka to demo the live solution to you. As you may know, we have been on a mission to keep you up to date with the latest cloud technology. ISRE Review is the 5th product we have now released on cloud, coming after attestation, agreed upon, SQM, and client inquiries. When creating our Review Cloud app, we did not simply copy what's in desktop, but we rather reimagined what review should look like, applying all of our learnings from desktop as well as our client feedback. Cloud and desktop is not a one-to-one match. There are differences, including terms and content changes, as well as new and improved cloud features. This does not mean that we are deprecating the desktop product. We will still maintain our desktop product and it will continue to be available to you. Before we head into the review solution, I'd like to talk you through our roadmap for 2025. So we ended off last year in Q4 2024 releasing Probe and Caseware IDEA. For Probe, we released some ISO 600 group audit UX enhancements, which complemented our July release. For IDEA, we included an update to our easy add-ons with enhanced integration into Caseware working papers. In Q1 2025, we released our ISA attestation and agreed upon, which is your apps for your legal and your property practitioners, and we also introduced institutional investors, and those are the releases that we do every year in February. In Q2 this year, we went to beta testing with our Review Early Adopter program. Just a shout out to all of those who participated in our Early Adopter program. Your feedback was invaluable. And now we're in Q3 where we are releasing Review to the market. Looking forward for the rest of the year, we will head into Q4 where we will then work on our desktop releases as well. And that is again for Probe, Audit International, and Caseware IDEA. So let's talk about Review. What makes Review on the cloud stand out? Well, firstly, we have automated work programs and checklists. So these are documents that are enabled and disabled depending on what's in your trial balance and what's material. Unlike desktop, it is activated as you go through the file, depending on your responses, rather than having the option to be optimized out. We have built-in compliance with ISRE 2400 standards. We have automatic ratio analysis that's based on your trial balance values. There will be a standard set of ratios that are automatically calculated, and as soon as your trial balance is imported, with alerts for what to investigate further. Being cloud-based, we also have real-time collaboration. This means that multiple users can be on the file, changing the file at the same time live. We have automatic query documents, which can be sent to clients directly from the app and responded to and accepted from the app as well. With the click of a button, query procedures and inquiry questions can be created for you. And obviously on cloud, we have cutting-edge cloud-based security. For those of you who are currently on our desktop Review product, you may be curious to know what the difference is between desktop and cloud. Well, like I mentioned, we reimagined what was possible with cloud and didn't simply copy what was on desktop and put it onto cloud. So the first thing I want to highlight to you is that on desktop, you had one file for both your financial statements and your review report, whereas on cloud, you will have two separate files. That means that the output of your file will be different. You will have only the review report being the output of your review engagement file. However, on cloud, you can easily import your trial balance with mappings directly from your financial statements cloud file into your review cloud file. There's also a slight terminology change. On desktop, we had LTBM, and now on cloud, we have MLTA, which is your misstatements likely to arise. It's the same concept, just a different name. We also have qualitatively material on cloud, which was not available on desktop, because now you have the option to make a financial statement area qualitatively material on our cloud solution. From a comparison perspective on desktop, you had your predictive comparisons, whereas on cloud, you have comparisons, but this time you can do it for up to 4 years of data. And all of those comparisons are automatically calculated for you, and you can be prompted to do further investigations based on those comparisons. On desktop, we had DuPont analysis, which we know was not very widely used and maybe not as helpful to use. So going on to cloud, we now have ratio analysis with a standard set of ratios, like I mentioned, that's automatically calculated for you based on your trial balance with prompts for further investigation. And then on the desktop, we didn't really have any dashboards, but on cloud, we now have dashboard for your overall strategy to summarize that for you. And then when it comes to the inquiries, on desktop, you simply had a discussion document for your queries, whereas on cloud, we now have an automatic query document. So these are for your queries where in desktop, your procedures and your questions were in one document, whereas now we have two separate documents, one where the procedures, your inquiry procedures are there, and one with queries, which you can send to clients directly from the app. Moving on to the foundation of the review app, what is the content based on? So it is based on ISRE 2400 revised standard, which is for engagements to review the historical financial statements, which has been effective for reviews of financial statements for periods ending on or after 31 December 2013. There's also a review mapping document available, which maps each requirement of the standard to the content in the review app, illustrating how we've complied with the standard for your referral. We've also used the IFAC guide to review engagements, which was issued in December 2013, and that is another source that we've used for content development. Just to give you an example of how we've used it, since the standard does not include an illustrative example of a letter of representation, we based the reviews letter of representation from the app on the example provided in the IFAC guide. Just looking at the extent of review procedures that are available to you and the extent of the content in your files, these can be based on two content profiles. One is core and the other is extended. Core includes review procedures and content that address the minimum requirements of the standard, whereas extended provides additional procedures that are based on the application and other explanatory material of the standard and content from the IFAC guide to review engagements. So we recommend that core is used by the experienced user, by firms using their own working papers, and firms which have assessed that documentation is sufficient to meet their requirements in terms of the standard. The extended option is recommended for the inexperienced user or firms choosing to use the supplementary procedures to assist with documentation to meet their requirements in terms of the standard. Our ISRE review app does not include content that addresses the requirements of the standard relating to special purpose financial statements or financial statements prepared using a compliance framework. Secondly, the procedures do not address the requirement of a specific financial reporting framework. The template is what we refer to as framework neutral. Thirdly, the app does not include any content related to the requirements of specific jurisdictions, for example, requirements of local companies acts. Now let's have a look at the workflow of the review app and how this is structured. So it's structured into 4 phases in line with the review process set out in the IFAC guide, namely accepting, planning, performing, and reporting. I'm going to show you an outline of how the app is structured with some snippets from the document manager. And then when I hand over Priyanka, she will talk you through the detail in her solution demo. So the first phase is accepting. Here you have your engagement, acceptance, and continuance document, which is 111. From the standard, we know that you must determine that the preconditions for a review engagement are present before accepting or continuing with that engagement. So this work program follows a logical flow, dynamically including relevant procedures based on your responses. It expands as you answer the checklist, depending on your responses. And also, I want to point out document 116, which is where you could find your terms of engagement. Then looking at planning, firstly, we have our materiality document, which is document 125. And then we have understanding the entity and its environment, which is mainly in document 131 with supplements in 132 and 134. You must obtain a sufficient understanding of the entity and its environment, including the financial reporting framework we know from the standards. So this helps you to identify areas where material misstatements are likely and to design appropriate inquiry and analytical procedures. So how this work program supports this is it prompts you to perform overall analytical procedures, such as your ratio and your trend analysis, to look at unusual trends or items. It offers structured inquiry procedures with optional queries. So these are predefined questions that can be posed in person via MS Teams or sent through the app. And this is document 131 with the option to use document 142. And the benefit of using the queries is that the responses pull through to the relevant procedure automatically, which not only eliminates the need for document responses, but also prevents inconsistencies in the engagement file. These include inquiries explicitly required by the standard. This document is also designed for users with varying levels of experience to ensure that there's usability across the engagement team in line with the design of the app using the core and extended profiles. In planning as well, we know that you have to raise misstatements likely to arise or MLTAs. So we know that you must focus your review procedures on areas where material misstatements are likely, using inquiry and analytical procedures to obtain that sufficient appropriate evidence. So the key features that we've included is the ability to record MLTAs from any section of the engagement file using the MLTA feature, which Priyanka will demo. We have document 160, which is our material FSA document, which identifies all the financial statement areas with MLTAs. It also prompts you to perform inquiry and analytical procedures for those areas. There's also an easy addition of custom procedures, so your inquiry, analytical, or additional procedures to address that identified MLTA. And you have the MLTA report, which facilitates tracking and review of the work performed on the MLTAs, including during overall engagement strategy review. Moving on to performing. So we know that material financial statement items you need to design and perform review procedures on. So you have to perform inquiry and analytical procedures on all material FSAs to attain that sufficient appropriate evidence. So key functionality that we have is document 160, which I've already mentioned, where you identify your material FSAs based on your prelim trial balance and the materiality that's set by the engagement team. And then that also prompts users to perform inquiry and analytical procedures. And then we have work programs, which include proposed inquiry and analytical procedures, including those explicitly required by the standard. These automatically pull through unusual fluctuations that are identified from your planning phase, from your overall analytical review, to direct inquiries to management. There's also features in your work programs that allow you to easily add custom procedures. We also provide you with the option to use queries for directing your inquiries to management. And during completion, there are prompts to ensure that users have addressed all material FSAs, including newly assessed as material. When we look at reporting, we have a few important documents, but I want to highlight one supporting document, which is the evaluation of evidence and conclusion. We know you must evaluate whether anything has come to your attention that causes you to believe the financial statements are materially misstated. So for this, we have document 930, which is your evaluate review evidence document. What this does is it summarizes your key engagement results in one place for manager and partner review. It highlights issues such as fraud or non-compliance with laws and regulations. You are prompted to take appropriate action for non-optimal responses, including communicating your fraud or your no-CLAR to management and those charged with governance, and performing procedures on FSAs that are newly assessed as material during the review. So that was just an overall view of the ISRE review solution and how it complies with the standard. I'll now hand over to Priyanka to do the more exciting stuff and take you through the live solution demo.
Thank you, Sandini, and good morning to everyone. My name is Priyanka, and I'm the product owner for our assurance suite within Caseware. I'm really excited to be taking you through a live demo of our cloud-based solution, ISRE Review. To start, for the users that are not too familiar with Caseware Cloud or those that would like a reminder, kindly scan the QR code on screen. You will be taken to our Caseware community where you can access a number of articles on how to create a cloud entity, how to manage your clients and staff users, how to create an engagement file, and much more. And now for the main event of this segment of our launch webinar, ISRE Review. I will be taking you through how to create, I'll be taking you through how to create an engagement and import your TB data from an SME financial statements file. To create a new engagement, you will click on New within your cloud instance for your entity. You can then select ISRE Review from the list of apps available to you, and the screen on your right will appear. The entity name will pull through from your entity details within Caseware Cloud. The only field you'll be required to enter is the name of the engagement. You can also enter the start and end date of your engagement. This will be of the specific engagement, as your year-end date will pull through from your cloud entity and does not need to be input into this screen. Upon creation, you will see just one document within your document manager. This is document 101, the entity and firm information. You will see a little notebook on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, which is your resource center and available to you at all times in the product. This tool is updated with important product updates as well as any articles which may assist in the understanding of the functionality of the product. Clicking into document 101, you will see two disclaimers. These need to be answered in order for you to see the rest of the document. Once you click both disclaimers, the rest of the document will populate for you. In this document 101, being firm and entity information, you will set up certain specifications for your engagement file, such as your type of engagement, your entity type, your description of owners and management, and other selections and settings that will allow for automation throughout the product. You are also able to set the basis of preparation, which will determine the grouping structure available within your file. We have currently available within our product IFRS for SMEs, as well as entity-specific basis of accounting. By clicking on the documents icon on your top right-hand side, you will see that document 111, being your engagement acceptance and continuous document, has now been activated. Let's go into that document. Within document 111, you will see that there are a number of procedures. This is a cascading document where more procedures are enabled as you walk through and answer depending on the response types that you provide. The most important is the accept and continue. Once you select this, the rest of the file will then populate within your engagement. Once you have completed document 111, the next step would be to request and obtain the TB from the entity. On our top navigation bar, you will see that there is a data tab. If you click onto this tab, you are able to import your TB data. There are a number of ways in which we can do this. We can have a manual import, a drop and drag. We can import from our client's accounting and ERP systems. There is also a Cloud Bridge function available from desktop, which imports directly into our SE product, being our ISRE review, and we then have import from another cloud engagement. I will now show you how to import from a Caseware Cloud file. By clicking on Import from Caseware Cloud Engagement, you will see the following screen. You will then see a list of entities that you can filter either by same year end, and you can also include other entities available to you. You then have the option to click on Sync. What this will do is ensure that any updates on the source file pull directly into the current file that you are working on. When you select Import, you will see the following warning appear. This is normal and nothing to be scared of. This is just noting that when you sync your file, the assignment of accounts will follow the same structure as your source file. Therefore, any changes will be made in the source file and then pulled through to your ISRE review file. If you would like to not sync your TB, and if there are any adjustments passed on your financial statements file, you can then manually make those adjustments within your ISRE review file. Once you click Import, you'll be taken directly to the following screen, which is your Accounts view within your Data tab. Your TB source will appear on your top right. This will be a quick way for you to identify whether you are using a TB that is synced. On sync, any changes on the SE/SME file will be pushed directly to the ISRE review file. This works one way from the source file into the review file. If you have a file that is being worked on by two separate departments and there are changes made into the financial statements file while you are not working in your file, when you open up your ISRE review file, you will then get a message that pops up to alert you that there have been adjustments made that you can then come into the Data tab to identify. I will now take you through a live demo of some of our key features within our product. Into our document manager, you will see that I have completed all my documents within my accepting phase. As a result, I have a big green ring with a tick in the middle. You'll see that on the side, all our phases appear with little donuts identifying the status of the documents within each phase. In our planning folder, we have a couple of documents outstanding, and these are gray. We then have documents that are prepared and documents that are reviewed. You can identify these by the colors. It will turn blue when it's been ticked as preparer and in green once it's been ticked by reviewed. Let's go into document 111. Within this document, there are a few features that will be available on all documents within the product. The first feature is our document map. This document map allows you to navigate within the specific documents to specific procedure groups. If we click on engagement assessment, we will see that this drags directly into the engagement assessment procedure group. We then have guidance within each document. This is either on a document level or on procedures where guidance is required. By clicking on the light bulb, you will see that your guidance appears on your sidebar. You can then close the guidance, or you can unselect the light bulb and it goes away. You can also navigate your document map. We'll now go into review tools. So the review tools appears on the top, this little spanner icon. You will see that I have my review tools activated. You can activate your review tools per document, or you can activate it and you can toggle it on or off. We have an option to look at changes since last review. So as you can see, there's an alert that tells me that changes are made since I last signed off within this document. You can also switch into changes since engagement creation. By switching into changes since engagement creation, we can see there's certain responses here. The first one I'd like to take you through is the non-optimal answers. If I click on this, it will take me to the procedure where there is a non-optimal response. What a non-optimal response is where there is a procedure and we have a negative response which requires follow-up work or follow-up procedures to be done. This specific procedure, we had answered that management does not accept responsibility for preparing the financial statements, which essentially is non-optimal when trying to start an engagement. The precondition then appears, and this precondition is a warning that I need to do more work or more investigation before continuing. The following group would then appeared and then asked the following questions, which answered yes and then allowed me to accept and continue the engagement. You will also see that I have one document that is missing a sign-off. This is the following here, and it does also show me which one it is once I hover over. If I click this, it goes away and I no longer see that no longer see any missing documents. The last response tab that I'd like to show you within this document is modified responses after procedure sign-off. If I click onto this, it takes me to the top, which tells me that this following procedure was updated after it was signed off on the side. Once we have completed our engagement and acceptance and continuance, and the TB is imported, as you can see in this current file, I have my net income here, which does tell me that my TB data is in my file. The next step would be to set our materiality. You can access your materiality by clicking on the top, materiality. You can also access it by this sidebar. It'll show you your recent documents. It'll also show you all active documents within your file. Within our materiality document, we have planning and revised. I'm currently sitting on my revised screen as I have revised materiality. You will see that my overall materiality was set in my planning phase as 60,000. I then revised this to 5,000. The 5,000 is then what appears on my top right-hand corner as my overall materiality as it stands. There is once again guidance within this document, as well as guidance on overall materiality in terms of our benchmarks and ranges available to the users. Now let's move into one of our favorite documents, document 134, which is our overall analytical review. Within this document, we have a number of automations which pull through from our trial balance. The first one is our comparison tab. Our comparison tab shows us the difference between our current year and prior year figures, and we can toggle this on depending on the number of years. So we can have up to 3 years in this document. I'll select 1 year as that's what data I have within my file. You're also able to click in and look at the sub-accounts that make up the total FSA line. Within this document, you're able to tick this inquire tick box. What this tick box does is it produces an automated procedure within your inventory FSA work program. And the value will also pull through there, which I will show you once we work into our inventory work program. You then have the option to write in a comment. In this box, the comment will then retain within this test file. And it will retain within this screen as part of your planning phase. Moving into our ratio analysis, we have a number of key ratios that are populated for you based on your TB data. If you hover over either the group or you hover over the ratio, you will see that there are tooltips which tell you what the ratio is calculating and the formula. All our gray blocks are automated, that being the calculation, the current year balance, and the prior year balance. Our difference is determined once we select the measure against in this column. To demonstrate, if you look at the debt to equity ratio, I currently have no difference. If I go in and select prior period only, my difference then appears. Moving back to our top table, I selected budget for my gross profit margin. When you select any variable other than prior period only, you'll be required to enter in a value. That value is what the difference is then calculated on. We also have the ability to add in a variance deemed significant value. What this does is it then flags to the user by this red exclamation mark when your actual difference calculated is above that value you have deemed significant. This can then prompt the user to inquire about that specific ratio. Within this document, you'll see that I have ticked 3 ratios as inquire, and there's a hyperlink that I can jump to document 131, being understand the entity and its environment. So let's move into that document. Going into this document, we'd like to navigate directly to where our procedures are. These procedures have been automated based on the selections in document 134. You will see that my 3 queries are here, and it's prompting me to inquire about the reasons for the increase, which has been automated in the net profit percentage, and the values of the actual percentage from current year to prior year appear within our query. We see the same within current ratio and our debt solvency ratio. You will see that these 3 procedures are marked, my review tools are on, and it's telling me that it's missing a sign-off. And before we go into the query document to see how the queries look like for a client, I'd like to just demonstrate our user-defined inquiry procedures. So you can add a procedure at the top. So every checklist within the product has an add new procedure button. This procedure allows you to enter in a user-defined procedure. Within this document, you'll see that this is highlighted in peach. If I go into my review tool, I can see that indicates to me that I've added this procedure. Let's now look at what our automated query documents look like. We can either navigate into this specific query document on this hyperlink here, or we can click on queries in our top bar, which then takes us to a dashboard of all open queries within the file. You will see that within this file, I have a number of active queries. In my accepting phase, I had 3 queries that are complete. Therefore, there's no action required on these, and they are marked in green. My 141 inquiries to obtain overall understanding has been reopened. We have a due date. We can also see the contact in which we sent this to. We then have some queries from our performing phase. You can see that this one has been responded to. It's marked in yellow. That is an indication that as the user, I need to go in and either accept or reopen those queries. We can also see that there were 9 queries here, and that if I hover over this, we have 0 responses accepted. For comparison, if we go into the top, we can see that 2 responses have been accepted. And we also have a waiting response. This means that the queries have been sent to the client, and anything that is still in draft form will appear as draft. Going into our inquiries to obtain an overall understanding, this is the same view for all query documents. You will see a filter on the side. You can then filter for whichever response type you'd like to look for. I want to look at what has been returned and what is awaiting response. The query document in draft form will appear in an editable form. Once it is sent to the client, however, the user is then able to input responses and submit on behalf of the client. We can indicate with comments, and there's also an audit trail that does retain within the queries. If we look at the one query that has been returned, we can see that this was sent to the contact. This was then responded by the contact, and then it was returned. We can then submit a new response, and what this will do is you can see the return now goes to 0, and we have response submitted. The user is then able to accept this response, and then you can see that this has both been marked as 0, which means that the response has been accepted. Moving on to awaiting response, we can see that these are our automated queries coming from our ratios. These queries are worded directly to the client, and they are able to input their responses to these queries. We also see that we have our user-defined procedure within our query document, and this has a summary name, which is added when we add our procedure, as well as our inquiry. Just to highlight the pinned top ribbon and what we can do within this ribbon, we have our document manager, which is all documents within the file. When we navigate in and out of this, it will always take us back to the last document we were in. This is the same as when you open and close your file. We have our data tab, where you can manage your TB data, adjustments, where you can pass adjustments within your file. We have an MLTA feature. Now, this is something, as Sandini has mentioned, there is a wording or terminology change from likely to be misstated to misstatements likely to arise. Within this link, we're able to create new MLTAs and view the MLTAs that have been raised. If I click on new MLTA, I'm able to add a title. I'm able to select whether it's pervasive or area. Once I select area, my FSA areas appear, and I can then select the area it is applicable to. I'm also able to determine what type is available, so whether it's normal, significant, or fraud. I can enter in my source, where I identify the MLTA, as well as my review response, being the checklist where I'm going to address the MLTA. The only field that is mandatory when creating an MLTA is our title, as well as our level. If we look at the MLTAs that I have already raised, you can see that one has been flagged as fraud, another as significant. You'll also see that when I link these documents, when I link the MLTA to a specific document, it does appear as an icon within the document itself. If we quickly click into document 131, we can see here there's an alert to tell me that there is an MLTA. The other way we can raise an MLTA is by clicking into our plus button on the top right-hand corner. This button is always available, and from this button we are able to create an adjustment, create a misstatement likely to arise, or any matters or going concern events. If we go back into this, we'll see that our revenue MLTA was raised from our material FSA document, which is our next favorite document. So let's now go into that. In this document, you'll see there are two tabs. There's a planning tab and a finalization tab, which work based on our two materiality levels, being planning and revised. If we look at our planning table, we will see that all balances imported on from an FSA level appear. If you click into this, all our sub-accounts also appear here. Within this document, you are able to identify if there have been material FSAs. This will flag automatically once my balance is above materiality set. We're then also able to tick whether we believe something is qualitatively material. And lastly, we can see the little star which indicates to us that an MLTA has been raised. For this particular FSA, you'll see that there's no balance for PPE. I had no PPE amount in my TB when I imported. As you can see, there's nothing to show. However, during planning, I identified an MLTA for this area. I raised it, and this then appears here, which then activates my work program. We have an additional procedures column. So what this does is you can see both these FSAs are material. However, I've only ticked additional procedures for inventory. Let's first go into trade and other receivables. You will see that under my procedures for material financial area, I have two groups being analytical and inquiries, which are automatically ticked within document 160 when an FSA is marked as material. There is no additional procedures. If I navigate into my inventory, I see that I have an additional procedures group appearing. It is here and it is blank, as we need to now add in a procedure. So let's go in and do that. I would like to add in a procedure responding to a material FSA, as that is the group activated for me. The type of procedure, this determines where the procedure is going to go. We can add procedures for analyticals. We can add inquiry procedures, and this will then fall into our query document that we send to the client. We would like to add an additional procedure. If we just add it in as a test and a test procedure, and we save that, we can then go into our additional procedures, and the procedure then appears. This can then be answered when we get into the work programs. The last feature that I'd like to show you, or second last within our material FSA document, is how to switch something on as qualitatively material. If we look at share capital, this is not a material balance. We have not identified any MLTAs, but for some reason or the other, we believe this could be qualitatively material. I tick in the box. You will see that analytical inquiries are automatically ticked for me, as these are the procedures that we need to perform for material FSA. You will then see that my work paper reference appears as a hyperlink, which tells me that my work paper has been activated within my document manager. The second table within our material FSA document is our disclosure and presentation table. This table shows us areas that are not linked to specific balance, such as related parties and cash flow statements. These two areas will always appear within this document. There is also an option to have other disclosure within this document. This can be activated within our understanding the entity and its environment, optimizing questions. Within this table, you're able to select whether the FSA areas are qualitatively or quantitatively material. You're also able to raise MLTAs, and this will appear as stars on the side. The last feature within our 160 document is the planned work reviewed column. This allows the users at a planning phase to review the work within the work programs and tick this box once they are satisfied that there is sufficient procedures planned to address whether the area, be it qualitatively material or an MLTA. Going into our last important document within our planning phase, it's our overall engagement strategy. This document is a quick snapshot of the planning phase of our audit. The first table on the top of this document that you will see is where we can record the details of all engagement team members. every engagement team member then has the ability to sign off on their respective roles. We then have a very nice summary dashboard. What this dashboard does is it tells us all the areas or flags to us the areas within the file. We can see that in this file, I have a total of 14 FSA sections, and 9 of these are material FSAs. We can also see that I have 3 MLTAs. One was raised as significant, the other as fraud. Normal MLTAs aren't flagged here. Certain conclusions also pull through, and there are hyperlinks into respective documents for the user to click into. Let's now have a look at what our work program checklists look like. First, I'd like to take you into our trade and other payables checklist. Clicking into this checklist, the first or the second rather, you'll always see our add procedure button at the top, and then we will see inquiries made to the entity personnel. This is the question that asks the user whether they would like to make use of the automatic query documents. You will see that within this document, I selected yes, which means that my query document has been activated. Then moving into our actual analytical and inquiry procedures, which are automated, you'll see that I have selected none identified for a couple of these. What this does is it then removes the automated query out of my query document so that it doesn't send unnecessary questions to the client. Let's go into this query document to see the impact. If I go into trade and other payables, you will see that I just have 2 queries here, being our cutoff adjustments and cutoff issues. The other inquiries don't appear. The following groups within each work program is standard. We have a presentation and disclosure group, procedure group. We have specific considerations group. Within this group, you're able to identify whether there's any fraud or non-compliance identified within your checklist. If selected yes, these are responses that pull through to a reporting document as well. We then have our procedure outcomes and reporting procedure group. What this procedure group does is it asks quite important questions in order for the product to formulate an overall conclusion. Based on the response types that you provide, an automated conclusion will appear. As you can see, for this one, there is only one conclusion based on the fact that I've answered no to everything, and this is a positive conclusion. If we go into another work program, and this one has been completed, we can see that within our procedure outcomes and reporting that we had answered that we have possibly material misstated area. This FSA, we have identified matters that could cause the financial statements as a whole to be materially misstated. What this then does is it pushes out additional procedures. If we can see my review tools are on, and if I go to instance engagement creation, we will see that this is a non-optimal answer. As a result of this yes, I then got this additional procedures as well as this conclusion. The conclusion was a no, and therefore I get a very different overall conclusion to when no matters were identified. While we're in this work program, I'd like to just show you this top table. What this table is if we decide that we do not want to make use of our automated query, we answer no, the following table will appear where you can enter in the details of an interviewee. You can add a row if there's multiple users that you have, and within this list, you're able to link into Caseware Cloud, and this then takes you to our users. Within this document, you will see that I had answered yes to non-compliance. If I click on 930 within this hyperlink, it then takes me to this document. This document then shows me a snapshot of my performing phase. If we click into this, we will see that we were in property, plant, and equipment, and we had answered yes to non-compliance. As a result, we have yes here, and we have current tax and liabilities as fraud indicators. We also have a material FSA under taxation, and if we quickly go into document 160, we will see that because of the revised materiality, we have a little flag that now appears in taxation because taxation is now material. Moving back into 930, the last thing I'd like to demonstrate within this document is our reviewers conclusion table. This table shows us the conclusion of all our work programs. If the work programs haven't been completed as yet, you'll see no response provided. The last feature that I would like to demonstrate to you is how to lock down an engagement file. If we go into the top, we will see that we have a workflow as well as our entity details. If we click into this, it'll take us to our entity details within Caseware Cloud. You're then able to edit your year-end date if you'd like to. You can change your currency within this dialog as well. You can select your report release date. If we select the following date, you will see that a trigger now appears, or warning now appears for the user to let them know that a manual lockdown is due within 59 days. This is just a warning to the user. It doesn't lock down your file automatically, but the countdown does work from date that you select your report release date up until when lockdown is due. I hope that you've enjoyed our live demo and that's piqued an interest within our product.